For anybody joining, my name is Marlon Avery. Couple titles here. I am the creator of Next Step DevCon. Currently, I am a program. Sorry, a course manager at Udacity. I manage the full stack course, data streaming course, C++, uh, JavaScript, and blockchain. It's like I'm missing one. And so that is my current title. And then so to kind of step back, my journey started. I wanted to have an idea while I was working on the app, and I was at the time I was a big fan of sneakers. So sneakers like Air Jordans, Nikes, LeBrons, and I wanted a way where I could showcase my sneaker collection and other people's collection on my phone. And so for whatever reason, um, I decided to do it. And it's very interesting because at that time, the only thing I knew about apps was how to download them. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what UX mean. I didn't know what UI mean. I didn't know what buttons should go where. I didn't know anything. And so it was a very uphill battle that I saw that I was going to have to endure. But I was like, well, there's nothing to lose here. Um, and so the first thing I did, I started to transition and I started to teach myself UI UX, and just to be quite honest, because that was the thing that had the least learning hurdle. Because this was in 2012, 13, 11, 12, 13. Um, Interesting enough, there wasn't a lot, if any, online resources for you to learn how to code. I remember the time I tried to convince myself that I was going to code. Um, MIT had just launched their Scratch program, and at the time it was like a Tetris kind of like fill in the gaps, kind of drag and drop, and even that looked too hard, and I was like, yeah, I'm out, and stuff. And so when I go teach myself UI UX, and started to kind of like design the app and stuff, what it was going to look like, and everything. And so got to a place when I had spent so much money of trying to just throw paint against the wall. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what an engineer should. I didn't know what I should pay an engineer for. The only thing I was telling them, like, hey, I get this idea, build it. And so, um, just not knowing, I just spent ridiculous amount of money trying to figure it out. And so I said I came to a point while I was working at Uber. I came to the point where I was like, I've had enough. I've had enough. This is not going to be my last idea. And so I said, you know, if I'm going to, if I'm going to, I want to learn this particular skill because my next idea, at the least, I want to start it. I might not build the entire thing myself, but at least I want to start it and stuff. And so I enrolled myself into a boot camp. The boot camp was in Atlanta, Tech Talent South, and at that boot camp, the conversation was the tech stack was a little bit JavaScript, but it was mostly around Ruby. And I was trying to figure that out. I was trying to figure that out. My my approach probably I kind of probably put myself going into the boot camp. I probably put too much pressure and just because you don't know, but I kind of put too much pressure on myself. And so, with a lot of companies, the sales pitch is you come to this boot camp and you're pretty much like guaranteed a job. Like our information stuff is so well, here that pretty much you'd be guaranteed a job and stuff like once you get done. And so my approach kind of going through that, not understanding that this is a lifelong journey, and there's like I've learned that you could spend five, plus years just learning and mastering one language, especially like languages like JavaScript as they continuously to evolve. and then you have other libraries and stuff that's added and stuff with it to branch out. And so going into it, my thought was just like, okay, I'm gonna go into this boot camp, learn, get a job, and I'm good. Um, and very much and quickly learned that that wasn't the case. And even before that, I learned that kind of, I think at that time going through the boot camp, I was starting to understand that I didn't understand my learning style. Um, and I was struggling with that. And so I was trying to figure out I was trying to figure out my learning style while I was learning. Which it'd have benefited me 10x more if I'd have figured that out. And stuff. And so I was trying to figure that piece out. And I was struggling. I was struggling. I was and for for whatever reason, my something told me to sit next to the smartest guy in the class. He was already a web developer. He just kind of wanted like I don't think he's learned Ruby yet, so he was already a web developer. So it was like Ryan said before, once you learn one language, it's easier to learn the next. And so he was just getting it. Boom, got it. Okay, you do what? Okay, boom, got it. Next. And I'm just like, man, I'm just like continuously just sinking my chair and everything. I'm just like, man, like this is tough. And so I think the thing that really, really kind of like handcuffed me going through a boot camp is I didn't understand that the boot camp has a particular pace. And, kind of like no matter what was going on, you got to stick to that pace. Um, and so the teacher has to stick to that pace. So if you're not getting something, a lot of boot camps will set up office hours and stuff like that, and other things. And so I was struggling, and because I didn't understand that, and I was trying to figure out. I was struggling between trying to figure out, okay, we just talked about this particular concept. I didn't understand this, but you already moved on to the next concept that builds from that. And so I was like, okay, well, if I didn't understand this, then I'm not going to understand that. And so I just kind of like slowly but surely just started to kind of like close out. And so I think the first piece of advice before I go into self learning, the first piece of advice is actually to work for self learning too, but in specifically boot camp, the first piece of advice I would say is if you're when you're going through the process, because there is a particular speed to it. If you're interested in going to boot camp, if you don't understand something, write it down and move on. Now when you write it down and so I need to come back to this is you definitely come back to it like that day later on that day, like Ryan said, we should go home and do extra hours and stuff and find additional researches on whatever topic and stuff may be. I didn't do that. I just let frustration build up, and probably like midway throughout the boot camp. So I just let frustration build up, build up, build up, build up, and to the point I was like, look, I paid X amount of dollars. Like, I better figure it out. I better figure it out. And so so kind of like going through that. Once I kind of got an understanding of there's a pace that they got to stick to because it's a time duration. There's a pace they got to stick to, and then I started to take advantage of my fellow students, and so I started to take advantage of them and the people who did understand the concept. Video chatting with them after the boot camp, or calling them, or staying after the class, just kind of like putting in the extra work and stuff into it. Um, so that's definitely one of the benefits of the boot camp is that um, this is just my personal opinion, but when you're going through a boot camp, you're not paying for anything that you can't get online. You know, either at a cheaper cost or for free. So you're not paying for that particular material. You're paying for the ladder of the material that's kind of put in all in order and stuff for you. And I think the biggest part that you're paying for is the immersive part. So you have when you're in a boot camp, you have no choice but to sit there and do the work. Now you can always, get up and leave and it's like that, but for the most part, you just have no choice to just sit there and do the work. And so you will struggle your way through the process, which is one of the biggest misconceptions of learning software engineer, learn becoming how to become a software engineer. People think that it's just going to start to click, which it will. I would argue it won't click probably until like the first year, like after your first year of learning. And I don't want that to be a discouragement from anybody, but I also want that to be to a reality, to be honest and stuff. And so I don't want anybody to kind of go into this space of like, oh yeah, I'll learn how to become a software engineer in 4, 8, 12 weeks, 4, 8, 12, 4, 8 months or something like that. It's very much levels to it. And it's very much a process, and understanding that, you know, if you understand the process, you can be more receptive to it. And so, you know, Ryan said, things didn't click for her and stuff after a while. Like understanding that it will give yourself a lot more patience. You know, be forgiving of yourself too. And speaking for me, I felt dumb for like the longest time. Like I was just like, oh man, like what? What did he say? I don't get it. And so, but that's all part of the process. So, kind of coming out of the boot camp, um, my confidence was starting to rise. My confidence was starting to rise, and I started to job seek. Started to job seek. I didn't get anything for me personally. I didn't get anything for a while. I didn't get anything for a minute. It came to the point where I just started to do some freelance work, which was also great. There's benefits to that too. So me personally, I didn't really think, wow. Now I did have a few classmates who, like after a month or two, they landed something. And of course, that I start to, just like anybody else, any other human, I start to question me. Like what's wrong with me? Well, maybe if I didn't struggle the first half of the boot camp, then I would have landed a job and stuff too. Just it's all this is kind of part of the process. And so yeah, I would kind of rehashing the pros from my perspective on going through a coding boot camp. Some of the pros are you're able to somebody's able to put the material in front of you. You have classmates that you can reach out to, lean on. You have an instructor who will usually have office hours. So all of that is mostly of the immersive part of it. I would say the cons of it is, I think probably the top of the list for a lot of people is price. Boot camps can be very pricey. It can be very expensive. Of it. I would definitely say do some research, kind of like get a feel for what boot camps are teaching, and kind of get a feel for, this is a piece of networking and stuff too, but kind of get a feel for where the industry is that you're trying to get into and stuff. And so if you're trying to get into mobile, talk to somebody who's doing that. If you're trying to get into web development, talk to somebody who's doing that. If you're trying to get into maybe gaming, talk to somebody who's doing that, and kind of get an interest of what they're doing, just to make sure that particular boot camp is not teaching either out of date material or material that is not going to relate to where you want to go, and stuff. And so I would say that now I would say another pro for going to boot camp is, you can definitely kind of like build relationships and stuff for sure. With your classmates, I'm sorry, some of your instructors will have people who they're already connected to, like in the industry. And so they will, they'll be able to connect you with set companies, set individual, and put you, in touch with you as you're kind of going through your process. And so, yeah, price is it's a challenge for a lot of people. When you have a boot camp that may cost 10, 20, 30,000. So I'm gonna shift into like self-learning, the pros and cons there. Self-learning is definitely tough. um, and it's tough because my biggest challenge when I was going through my process after I left the boot camp. So real quick, now this is I don't recommend this, but after I left the boot camp, um, I was starting to understand that the jobs I was interested in, those particular companies, they was looking for job engineers who knew JavaScript. And so I was looking to learn that. And so I kind of did the most. I What I did is I minimized my bills to like the minimum level. Um, Moved in with a friend, and was able to focus on coding for 6 to 8 hours a day. And I did that for the entire year. And like, I did that for like the entire year. And I started all that off with like the 100 Days of Code challenge. I documented the entire process on Instagram. All those posts are still there. Um, and I was just building things, learning things. Now, some of the pros of self-learning is price. Price again. You can find free material. You can find some good free material for sure. You can find paid courses and stuff that has high quality, like Udacity, and you can find a lot of things. Some of the cons of self-learning is you're by yourself, and that becomes challenging in so many ways because you can struggle to kind of stay the course. And when I say stay the course, I don't mean just focus on the material. I say stay the course on you've been learning JavaScript promises. Um, and you're like kind of looking for additional resources, and you see an article popped up that somebody just got hired at X company for $200,000 and they're learning Ruby. And you're like, whoa, wait, it is what? Okay, I'm gonna learn Ruby. And so really easy to kind of like jump the ship as you see so many people doing other things. You got other people who's giving you advices and stuff. And I think one of the challenging things too of self-learning is it's definitely important to start networking and start to seek advice. The challenging part about that is that some engineers would speak from their background, their perspective. So they may tell you that, oh, you should go learn Python because they start off with Python. Or they wish they started off with Python. Or you should go learn JavaScript because they start off with JavaScript. So you definitely have to kind of get an understanding of the particular role and stuff that you want to go into, and which direction you want to go into. And so that can be the challenge. A pro of self-learning is you really start to build an appetite of finding the answer yourself. That is essential, because your problem solving skills is not something that's usually taught anywhere. That's mostly just like repetition. And you got you're gonna go through frustration. I mean, that's just gonna be a part. You're gonna go through so much frustration and trying to figure out, the problem. Why is this breaking? What does this error mean? This response on Stack Overflow doesn't make any sense. You're gonna go through, all of those things. And so that itself becomes, extremely challenging as you're self-learning. But I think even if you go into a boot camp, and even if you're doing self-learning, I think the biggest thing that you should definitely focus on is problem solving. How can you find the answer? Getting the repetition of finding the answer yourself. To kind of rehash, it's definitely challenging. Whatever journey and stuff that you're gonna decide to go through. If you're gonna go through a coding boot camp, if you can go to school for study CS, if you're gonna do self learning, each one has its own challenges and has its own pros and cons. Um, so I would definitely say to number one, enjoy the journey because it's definitely a journey. Just from my experience, please don't buy into the notion that you're going to become a software engineer in a couple weeks. That is the quickest way to build frustration because in those couple weeks, you're going to feel like you still know nothing. And that is going to be so a reality. I was talking to Tom. Tom is we're going to have Tom up next. Tom has been 10 plus years, I think. Tom, you said you've been programming. And Tom said he still has days where you feel like he knows nothing. And he's 10 years in. And so this is all like, definitely a part of the journey, a part of the process, and stuff. And so please, 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 don't feel, allow yourself grace. Definitely allow yourself grace. Allow yourself to, you're going to do mixed ups. You're going to not have it all figured out. That's just a part of the process. Understand it's a part of the process and embrace it as you go along with it.